starts, and then we begin, sir. Okay. Yeah.
Sure.
We request you to be on mute while the sponsor videos are playing.
Our vice chair is there. Hi, Somshekhar. Good afternoon.
Somshekhar, how are you?
Very good afternoon.
Good afternoon.
Hi, everybody. Good afternoon.
Home. A fundamental need since the dawn of humankind. A universal aspiration shaped by specific needs, depending on where we live on the planet. A harmonious interplay of material and emotional components, personal and shared experiences. Infinitely small individual homes and our infinitely vast shared home, the planet. A challenge that's never been more essential for society to reconcile performance and comfort while preserving resources. As historical market leaders, we now have the responsibility and the... For more than 350 years, we are manufacturers and distributors. We design materials and solutions that have a tangible, positive impact on people's lives, including the way they work, take care of themselves, and travel. The world. We are a worldwide, multi-local organization with a global ambition to protect our planet and invent a more sustainable future. A better, dedicated with continuously improving and innovating. Our teams work hand in hand with our partners to imagine solutions that enhance people's individual quality of life and address the social, societal, and environmental challenges facing the planet. We care about our employees, our customers, and our communities. Home. We build places that spark dreams and aspirations. And we work every day to make the world a more beautiful and more sustainable home for us all to live in. Making the world a better home. That's our purpose.
So clear, so pure. Clear glass from Saint Gobain.
$924 cups of coffee, 20,000 calories burnt, 579 personal meeting rooms, 56 buys made easier, 380 choices made harder, 1,200 tight deadlines, 3 deep breaths. 31 big ideas, 20 stories of clean air, 88 new perspectives, 1,000 lives touched. And that's just one day, one building. From the smallest needs to the biggest desires, we work to get it right every single time. Because being a global leader means looking beyond what you can see to what can be. To imagine, create, cultivate a better future together. We partner with passion. We build stories of change. We open new doors and create spaces that people call their own. And that's why for 10 years, across across 5 cities in 90 buildings, among infinite human moments. There's one name that stands out: Brookfield Properties.
Yeah.
Yes, sir.
So let's start the
Yes, sir.
session. Yeah, very good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. Today we have this list from various sectors. Besides my co-chair, Mr. Somashekar, as well as the chairman of Indian Green Building Council, Mr. Suresh, are there with us. Welcome everybody. We have the topic for the evening is that enhancing physical well-being and the visual comfort front. This is the topic for the discussion today for the next 1 hour. With respect to the context of that topic, I'm just going to give a minute of explanation, and then that we will get on to the chairman's address. See, when we talk about or the factory premise, or about a residential premise, or the hotel, or any kind of a real estate, the productivity is a more important. The comfort of the people working inside the premise is very important for them to continue to be there and enjoying their work, live, whatever it is actually. When you call that kind of thing, there are various factors which comes in front of us. 2-3 factors which are very important is the natural lighting, then we kind of the comfort, that inside lighting, and if it is at night hours, you need to have the lighting in such a way which helps you, or in the large working office, the lighting besides the natural lighting, how it is going to help. So on those grounds, actually, we will be discussing various subjects today. Before getting into the topic, I would like to welcome our chairman of Indian Green Building Council, who has required no major introduction, because he knows he is a known personality. But after yesterday's this inaugural session, everyone knows about him, even those who have not understood him so far. So he is a chairman of Indian Green Building Council. He is having about 54 years of professional experience in various formats of real estate, infrastructure, and all other segments. He is also the chairman of National Building Code, and also the managing director and the chairman for this is a national housing also. So all those things are to his credit. I welcome Mr. Suresh to give his briefing on this subject and overall context setting for this session, sir. Welcome, Mr. Suresh.
I hope, yeah. Good. A very happy good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen, and to Dr. Whelan and Mr. Somashekar, Chair and Co-Chair, Ms. Kate Harris, Vinay Natarajan, Ashish Behel, and all the distinguished participants. What a pleasure to welcome. And I'm so happy to see that. First thing I saw is we have 4,082 participants now. We are logged now. The biggest one which we had was last year with the physical participation component, 17 congresses. 2,750 was that number. But today in a virtual format, it's now 4,082. And I'm so happy that so many participants from different parts of the country and even abroad are there keying into this particular session. We got 14 countries participating in the Green Building Council, including the World Green Building Council. Kate, I'm very happy that Australian Green Building Council is very much part of the event along with the remaining 13 countries. And therefore, the response has been phenomenal. We have been having a large number of slices of discussion going on various phases of the green building movement. And all we want to tell is that this particular segment that we are discussing over there, it talks in terms of all the green products in a large way. And green products will cover all type of things on the structural, non-structural, finishing and services component. And each one of them are contributing to environment friendly, ecologically appropriate, energy saving, all those distinct parameters which will go into the products of green products. And in that, many of them are also covered on the health and well-being products. For example, our hospitality segment wants many components which are related to this, including the housekeeping and other related components also are equally important component there. And in our country, the whole building construction sector, for the information of Ms. Kate Harris, is about roughly about $300 billion, madam. This is a very big country of subcontinental proportion. It's a country with roughly 1.4 billion people. So you can understand 1.4 billion, that's a hell of a lot of numbers there, 1,400 million people. And we need to have a lot of housing done, schools done, hospitals done, offices done, malls done. All the asset class of buildings have to be created. So that component is about $300 billion or about 21 lakh crores in Indian rupees. That's the number that we have. And obviously all the resources are being used in a big way. And the building material component is roughly around 65 to 70% of the total cost. And the remaining component will labor along with, that means the skill level. That means the people who assemble all those building blocks and put together that house or an office or a hotel or a hospital, etc., which is the material and labor component, is a very major issue that's coming. So we are very keen that under the green building movement, we would like to see how best each one of the building material and the building products and components that come into the construction in the construction and installation are all sustainable in a large way and able to ensure that each one blocks added together that also become along with design because of total green building. So green building should also have the large number of products that go into the wall or the roof or the tapestry or the door and the flooring or the water connection, various other aspects also to be appropriately done. So fortunately, our Green Pro rating system has caught up extremely well, and we are very happy that over 1,500 products are there with about roughly over 120 odd companies dealing with these various products under various segments there. We're very happy that's being done, and since we are already crossed around 7.61 billion square feet of green footprint, that's maybe one among the top few in the world there. And the next 2 years' time, by 2022, when India begins 75 years of independence, we want to be 10 billion square feet, and that will be around 1,000 crore square feet of green footprint, where at that point of time, we'll be #1 in the world for the green footprint. So if you want to achieve all that, we have around, including yesterday's one, we have 28 rating systems. We don't have a single rating, vanilla rating. We have identified the rating based on the various uses of the building, be it a residence or a school or a hospital or an office or a mall or a factory, etc. Depending upon the use of each one of the building, your water consumption, your energy consumption, including your building material, all of them will undergo change there. And we also want to ensure, therefore, that the ratings also provides for use of all types of materials which are also environment friendly. And we give a lot of importance for the component of the materials in terms of not only integrated water management, integrated energy management, integrated waste management, but also the use of land along with the building materials component is a very major issue there. And therefore, large number of speakers who are going to be there, they will be talking about some of those one. And I'm very happy, Kate, you will be bringing on eco-labeling. And our Green Pro is already part of the eco-labeled product there. We are working very closely with the international eco-labeling one, the Australian experience. You will also be able to hear, as I'm able to see, the two films that you saw from Saint-Gobain. Glass is an important component, and with this part of the country has got 95% of the time which is called the clear design sky. That means the sunlight is available, as against your standard overcast sky in the northern latitude, southern latitude. Comparatively, Australia will be on the will be coming in the southern latitude, but you'll also got good sun coming in most of the time period. So because of that, the glass is used as a material to harness the daylight in a big way, but to keep away the heat and keep away the glare. We want the light in, but not the heat and the glare in. So like that, every building material that we use, we want to ensure that. And we have one more presentation coming also on the lighting component, which Ashish will be doing. I'm sure we'll have a wonderful session coming. My idea is to be with you, to give all my best wishes. It's a very important theme there. And our own theme component for the Green Building Congress is on the health and well-being as an important component with the post-COVID situation. Everybody is very keen that we create all our buildings and spaces which brings in good well-being, all healthy conditions are there, so that now post-COVID has brought a lot of new dimensions of the infection spread, other related, what all things to be done on a wall or a roof or from maintenance, other related point. We know the virus gets stuck on various aspects on that we are aware, which are all the thing it can hold on. So we got to be very careful. The touch and other related things also become important. So the designer has to play a role, the architect and the engineer, the building material people who are going to contribute has to be in a big way. Mechanical, electrical, plumbing, firefighting on the air conditioning, the lighting, the ventilation on the water, plumbing, each will contribute their inputs so that together, at the end of the day, we have the green building, which will be sustainable from all point of view. We are fully wedded to the Sustainable Development Goal to the year 2030. And you may know that the Indian National Building Code of India is the first building code in 2016, which has gotten the new chapter on approach to sustainability. And to my knowledge, that's the only national building code which has got sustainability chapter added in that over there. And therefore, we are strictly going by all our rating system also gain towards that. Well, all we want to say is that we are working towards it. It's a holistic, integrated approach where all the actors have to put their role. So the final product at the end of the day is taking care of Mother Nature well, the planet well, and more importantly, the consumers and the users of all the spaces, the families living in the houses, doctors and the patients in the hospitals, the teachers and children in the school building, or the big bosses and the small bosses and the workers working on IT spaces or factory building. Each one should have the quality of life in the place that we live or place that we work or place that we recreate with the right level of environment, which is at the end of the day, sustainable, green, built environment. We have added one more word added. We gone beyond the green building component and we got into the built environment, namely a series of building with the infrastructure together. So we are the first one to get into that because then it got into the neighborhood, the campus planning. Also, we got into the cities. And I'm very happy that we are the first one to bring in a green city rating. And I'm very happy Australian Green Building Council has also recently gotten the green cities rating has been brought out. The second one in the world to bring in the city rating is Australian Green Building Council. So we cover not only buildings, we also cover built environment. So I'm sure there are a lot of things to learn from all the three distinguished speakers. I'm going to be all ears to see what it is. And after a minute from now, it will be Dr. Wellin and Somshekhar and the three speakers. I'll only be hearing what you're going to say and what input. But I'm going to be there till the end of the session. I'm not running away after this 5 minutes. I'm going to be there till the end of the session to hear each one of you. I want to give all my very best wishes to each one of you for the session. And thank you very much, Dr. Wellin, for inviting me and Somshekhar and for the very kind words about me. Thank you very much. All the best.
Thank you very much, sir, for your introductory address. Now that I will be just giving a briefing, taking from your statement, sir. This is not only the building related, it is the built environment related. That is what IGBC is focusing for. And having said that, as I was initially saying, whether it is office building, whether it may be factory, it may be residential, or any kind of a premise. One important thing which we all know about is, unless otherwise it makes the personal working in that premise comfortable, the productivity, the outcome is not going to be the way it is expected. So all the more important reason is that, like for example, chairman was highlighting, post-COVID, the expectation level has gone up. It has gone multiple level from the user's point of view. Being from this construction, a developer, commercial office side, I'm just having an experience. We are also in the industrial sector. Now I'm experiencing that people are more concerned about their safety, their employees' safety. There are a lot of initiatives, as chairman was highlighting, they have been brought in like a touchless solutions. There are a lot of solutions which including the lift system or any kind of system where people are not having the physical touch with this particular property itself, right from the entry to the office and then where they come out of the office. To that extent, people are more conscious about it, and that is post-COVID. In the normal scenario also, there are various factors that provides that comfort, like for example, natural lighting, the lighting lux lamp. There is some sort of a kind of a lot of, you can say any product, whatever is being used in the building or the carpet or anything, that has to be really, really, really sustainable in nature. On those grounds, we have three speakers. I will introduce the first speaker, followed by that Somashekar will introduce the other two speakers, and he will be making the concluding remarks also. With that background, I will just get on to the first speaker introduction, who is also from Australia, and they have a wonderful representation for this Indian Green Building Council. And the topic with which she is going to speak about is eco-labeling for health and well-being products, Australian experience. That is what the topic. Ms. Kat Harris is a board member of Global Eco-Labeling Network, and she is a passionate change maker who is committed to a future-ready society also across all sectors, and they have supporting individuals and organizations. Green Building Council has over 18 years of not-for-profit leadership, including previously being the CEO of Good Environmental Choice Australia and Centre for Sustainability Leadership. Is a board member of proud to be on the board of Global Eco-Labeling Network, and is the Australian chair who is committed to a future of the Environmental Labeling Committee for the International Standards Organization. She is also involved in the Living Future Institute of Australia. Over to you, Ms. Kate Harris, and you can proceed with your presentation, please. Welcome.
Thank you so much. I will just bring up my slides. Oh, I think you need to allow me to share my slides, if that's possible. There we go. Thank you. I'll just bring them up.
Yes, you are there.
Yeah,
Perfect.
your slides have come.
Can you see that?
Yeah.
Yes.
Wonderful.
Great. Thank you so much for having me, and Suresh, you couldn't have framed my talk better. I felt like you covered all of the topics that I'm aiming to talk about tonight, or tonight for me anyway, which is fantastic. And something that I'm very passionate about is around good products for people and planet. And yes, thank you for having me. Congratulations to GreenPro and for your whole conference. I've been there in person before, and virtual isn't quite the same, but I'm thrilled to be a part of it. As Suresh mentioned, I am going to be talking about eco-labels for health and well-being, and I'd like to give a bit of background first around that sense of physical wellness with products and perhaps the why. I'd first of all like to acknowledge land, actually. So our tradition in Australia is to acknowledge our First Nations people, our Indigenous, and usually to say, to acknowledge their wisdom and their elders of past and present. And similar to India, there's many thousands of years of wisdom and care that goes into land. And I think it's useful to acknowledge that when we're talking about physical wellness and place, before we move into built environment, to acknowledge that there is nothing without land in that sense. A sense of wellness and food, a built environment, building materials, all of our products indeed come from the land. And that sense of caretaking and sustainability is something I think we are all well to remember as we move into physical wellness. As Suresh mentioned, Australia very much is committed and is doing well in a built environment, in particular for sustainability. It is where we see perhaps the biggest traction in built environment footprint, and Green Building Council of Australia are doing a phenomenal job. There's built environment, residential, retail, and also infrastructure. And as it was mentioned, there's new release in terms of whole precinct areas and whole placemaking. Indeed, you'll see 2 buildings here that are quite well known in Australia for their Green Building Council awards and sustainability initiatives. I think what's also important to acknowledge about Australia is that we very much live in a high urban dense environment. We might have a lot of land relatively for our population, but many of us do live in urban environments, and therefore the conscious placemaking that we need to consider to be quite conscious in how we create these spaces, both visually and how we live, and access to horizons and access to nature is really critical. We are well aware now of how that interplays with our sense of community and our connectivity as well, and that certainly plays into our physical well-being. With COVID and lockdowns, and I'm sure we've all got our own experiences in this, certainly we have seen the importance of having a safe haven to be, and also the importance of connectivity to community. So what we do see is an emphasis not only on design of the actual building, but the interaction with nature and its surrounds. Nature has played an incredible part of physical wellness, and I'm not going to touch much on. I know you're going to have some wonderful speakers talk about light and nature and all the impacts on that, so I'm only going to just touch on it briefly. But some of the themes that we're seeing in terms of that design principle, which is critical, are nature, access to nature in the placemaking, and indeed also bringing nature inside. And this is actually a green building with a vertical wall in Sydney, Australia as well. There are very measurable rewards and recognition of that in terms of employee health and well-being, and actually people choosing to work in environments that do have a healthy well-being space, including access to nature. Biophilic design is another aspect and theme, and Green Building Council of Australia is also working with Living Future Institute of Australia and the international branch too. But that sense of the design of being able to reflect what we see out in the world, how that makes us feel, is certainly also something of consideration that we're seeing as a theme and a commitment in Australia. Suresh mentioned some of these too, but I think it's really important to highlight also from some of even the basic Maslow's hierarchy of needs. What is it that is actually important for us? And we mustn't forget that safety is critical. So a building being sound, safe to be in is a very important first starting point. Being secure, that's obviously important for physical well-being too. That sense of space, a sensory stimulation, and we'll hear more about the light and the glass later, and also that sense of ritual and symbols that actually bring in other levels of happiness and emotional and spiritual wellness that also reinforce our physical wellness, I think is important to remember. So light, beauty, vitality, how do we get these in buildings beyond design? We see it in colour. The importance of different colours to be able to stimulate different moods, different responses and energies, and that certainly is coming into play in interior design focus in Australia. But underneath all of this, that sense of beauty and design and inspiration, which is fantastic, is that critical conversation of what actually lies below the surface. And is beauty just skin deep? Or do we really need to look at what it is that we put in our buildings, in our spaces, in our offices that we go to and spend so much time in, or in our residence as well? And that's where the importance of understanding building products and everything that goes into those buildings is actually critical, and the role of where eco-labelling comes in. So whilst our products may have immediate benefit to us, we also need to acknowledge that they have a whole supply chain. They have actually touched not only our life as a user, as Suresh mentioned, but many users in terms of who've contributed to manufacturing of those products. They have actually touched thousands across many different countries. And in terms of land and physical well-being, we must not just look at the end product, but we must look at the full life cycle and all of the touch points of those products and where health and wellness or disease and illness may lie. I want to highlight that the impact of products is not just a professional story for me. It's one that I came to learn through the birth of my son, and this is a picture of him. And I'm pleased to say he's a very young 14-year-old and very strong, happy, maybe not quite so happy until school's out, but mostly happy boy. But it wasn't always that way. He was born with many multiple chemical sensitivities, and I very quickly learned that almost everything in the environment that I had, whether it was furniture, foams, paints, cleaning the floor, toys that I gave him, food that he had, you name it, anything that was around him, including material or textile, actually affected him. And what was important about that for me was actually understanding the role of those inputs and chemicals and materials that make up those products, and the fact that not only were they affecting my son, but they indeed affect all of us. So what does that mean in terms of our human rights, human health for all buildings? How do we make sure, as Suresh mentioned, that our planet, our flora, our fauna is protected? How do we make sure that a conscious consumption and choices that we make are present in every decision, in every component of a building, whether that's our home or whether that's a public space? I hear a lot of people say, I'm not sure that that's really possible. Surely it's not possible to have something that looks beautiful as well as healthy, and it's good for me as a user, and it was also good for people who manufactured it. And the fantastic news is that it absolutely is possible. We have seen some of these beautiful green buildings that have been certified that are designed for that broader sense of sustainability and positive future, that do have met the challenges of obtaining and procuring products that meet the needs of environmental care for not only our users, like people like my son, you and I, and our families, but also for those who've manufactured them, and also that sense of end of life. This particular example was actually the world's first sustainability shopping centre in Victoria. And if you ever get to Melbourne, it's worth having a look at Brickworks, and it's full of eco-labelled products. It looks at materials, and it's done a great job in actually proving that something quite complex is possible, can be beautiful, can be ethical, and also can be healthy as well. As was mentioned previously, I'm also very passionate about the public buildings and health and wellness and physical right to health in buildings. And hotels, schools, and hospitals are certainly places dear to my heart that do deserve best practice products in regards to procurement, particularly in those spaces of schools where there's young and vulnerable with their immune systems, and indeed hospitals where people often struggle with physical wellness before they go. So these are the areas in terms of public policy that we're really looking to drive through the Global Ecolabeling Network and beyond to make sure that those best practice products are a part of those builds. How do you do it? How do you find these products? That's the big challenge. I often hear that. Well, it's really good to know about the problems and chemicals in carpets and paint, but how do we find a good one, and how do we know? And that's where labels like Green Pro and the role of Global Ecolabeling Network come in. So the Ecolabeling Network is very much around, its mission is lead, serve, grow, and it is about leading the conversation on best practice products, making sure these labels are best practice and standing, and continuing to improve and drive best practice. They often do reference and are procured into green building projects, which I know they are in India, and they certainly are with Green Building Council in Australia, and indeed other green building councils around the world. So where they are procuring and referencing and looking for one-stop shop solutions for labels that provide best practice, and there's a level of assurance that we know that the quality and the care is in that product is guaranteed by the label. There are many members around the world, of which, of course, GreenPro is one, and I'm very pleased to be working with them quite significantly and proud of their achievements. And as was previously mentioned, I did used to work for GECA, Good Environmental Choice Australia. The differences of the eco-label that Jen recommends, I think the critical component is the fact that it is based on the ISO 14024. It is not just looking at one aspect of a product, or like a chemical, for instance. It is looking at full impact of the health of that product for people who used it, for planet, and also for the end user, to make sure that everything along that supply chain is considered. And some of them indeed also, particularly with in partnership with Green Building Council in Australia, does look at the social and ethical impacts and that broader wellbeing also. These are some examples of standards. And so if you were to look at how do I actually make a building healthier, how do I know that I'm doing the right thing by my staff and by family, these are a good example, these ones referenced by Good Environmental Choice Australia, of products and standards that you can know that there's an assurance where that quality and care of people and planet has been assured within each individual product. And because there's a database through Global Ecolabeling Network and there's global solutions, it's not just in Australia or India, that we do need a global and a multinational response to be able to procure these products into our built environment, so that they can indeed be beautiful, as well as moral and also physical well-being. When it comes to a visual symbol, and we're talking about visual wellness, and me particularly around the physical, it can be as simple as a label. And so I really do encourage you to not only, number one, look for the label, but number two, ask and find your local Global Ecolabeling Network member. But don't stop there. It's about finding out what sits beyond the label, understanding the level of credibility and assurance that sits with it. Look at the standards online and actually understand what it is that a simple label may deliver across a whole supply chain that supports your physical health and well-being, as well as our community. So what does that mean? I really encourage you to look after not only your own physical wellness, but all of our community. And it can be about beauty, it can be about design and products, and it can be as simple as a label. And so I really encourage us all to work together to drive sustainability in the built environment for all of our wellbeing. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Ms. Kath. Really appreciate it. And I really appreciate your time conscious also. You are on dot and closing it in exactly 15 minutes. Thank you very much. Only one information, as Chairman was highlighting, we have almost 6,000 and odd certified green products in our Indian context, actually. So that is one information, as you mentioned. We are also very conscious about green products. Over to you, Somashekar sir, please. Somashekar, unmuted. Please, go ahead.
Yeah, thank you, everyone. It was a nice presentation from Kate Harris. Thank you, madam. It was very informative. Thank you, Suresh ji and Velen ji. A warm welcome again to all our speakers who are going to speak further. Today, we are going to discuss on the influence of light on the human being in his day-to-day life. for his physical well-being, as all of us know. We have just finished a wonderful presentation from Madam Kat Harris. We all know light only as a source of energy. Today, you will witness how light is connected with human life in influencing its biological clock and its mood and its health. Our Upanishads in India, being a country with a vast culture, describes light in a Sanskrit shloka, which is usually sung in all our schools as youngsters, and any auspicious occasion when you light a function, we sing this shloka. It goes like this. I just would like to share it for the information at all. Asatoma sadgamaya, tamasoma jyotirgamaya, mrityorma amrutangamaya, om shanti, shanti, shanti. Meaning, asatoma sadgamaya, from ignorance lead me to truth. Tamasoma jyotirgamaya, from darkness lead me to light. Mrityorma amrutangamaya, from death lead me to immortality. Om Shanti, Shanti. Om peace, peace, and peace. So there is nothing that we need to reinvent. It has been already told, the significance of life in human beings' life. Research has shown that the variation of light has most important factor in setting and maintaining our natural daily rhythm. That is what is called a circadian rhythm. We should be exposed to intense light in the daytime and preferably sleep in the darkness at the night. Outdoor daily light exposure will have to be significant effect on maintaining our circadian rhythms. But the reality is that we spend 80 to 90% of our time indoors, and the consequences are evident. Today, our speakers are going to elaborately discuss and share their experiences and the intervention of technology in making this a reality. Now, I would like to introduce our next speaker, Vinay Natarajan. Vinay Natarajan is currently a part of St. Gobain's R&D division at Chennai and manages the building science, modeling, communication functions. He has over 10 years of work experience in industrial application-based innovation of products, solution and services. His interests are translating customer needs into R&D problem, statements and developing competencies for thermal comfort, energy performances of building, and glare measurements to guide new solution in India and other emerging economies. Developing strategies for energy efficient and sustainable buildings in the design and the post-occupancy stage of a building. Development of workspaces that enhance the productivity of their occupants. He graduated from IIT Bombay with a bachelor's degree in mechanical engineering. He has MS and PhD degrees from the University of Illinois, Urbana campaign, USA in the year 2016 and 2006 to 2009, respectively, from the Department of Theoretical and Applied Mechanics. He has several journal publications, patents, and articles to his credit. Here, I present to you Mr. Vinay Natarajan. Over to you, sir. You have 15 minutes of time, and I'm just going to remind you 2 minutes before your time is up. Thank you very much.
Thank you. So my screen is visible? It's okay?
It's visible. It's visible.
Okay. So good afternoon, everybody, and thank you so much for the introduction. So my name is Vinay Natarajan, and today I'll talk to you a little bit about Glazing's glass and daylighting. So I don't want to belabor the point, but essentially daylighting is something that everybody looks for, and in office spaces and at home. And it is there's enough data in literature to show that having access to daylight. So I just want to check one thing: is the is the gallery showing up below? Do I need to do something to? Yeah. Okay. Excellent.
So,
Excellent. Okay. So it's fairly well known that daylight has a significant impact on in the way we think, in the way we work, on our productivity, health, and well-being. And there are two aspects that we always look for in buildings, which is why we use glass. First is the presence of sufficient daylighting. So you want uniformity of daylighting in the place that you are. And the second is the view, which really makes you feel connected with the outside. So that's where glass comes in as an important building material between us and the outside. Now, with one of the points that was actually brought out by Mr. Suresh was we live in India where there is more than ample solar radiation that's available to us. Most parts of India, over a significant part of a big part of the year, we receive solar radiation that brings in typically about 1 lakh lux. Okay? And okay, 3 months when it's overcast and when it's cloudy, we do have significantly lower light levels. That said, we do have a lot of light, and it's really up to us on how we harness it and bring it in. Along with glass and bringing in daylight, we have a problem of glare. And this is going to be the topic of my discussion today. And the solution to glare often tends to be to use blinds. So this is a photograph of a building. One thing we need to remember is when we use blinds to address the problem of glare, we are also defeating the purpose of why we have the glass, which is we are no more able to view the outside, and we are removing all of the useful daylight that we are actually looking for. Another important part to actually note is the fact that when we put our blinds down, we seldom go back to put it up. Okay? And blinds that are down tend to remain down, tend to be down even during parts when we can actually have the blinds up and bring daylight in. So the topic of my presentation today is essentially about glazing selection that strikes the right balance between daylight while minimizing glare. The first point that I wanted to talk about as a part of this is what's the optimal VLT spec that we need for a good work environment. Now, given the amount of daylight that we actually have in India, one of the things that we've actually found is that a glass with a VLT spec of 30% or less typically tends to be sufficient to bring in the right amount of light into the building. That said, it is a function of the window to wall ratio that we have or the floor plate design. And typically detailed design calculations are done beforehand to ensure that the right product spec is specified for the building. So one of the takeaway points really is that the VLT that we specify for the building needs to be optimal. A very high VLT essentially means that you're bringing in too much light, which can result in the problem of glare. The second point is really to understand what is glare and how our eye perceives glare. In order to do this, I'll start by first defining I'll start by trying to define what glare is. So glare is a perception of the eye where the eye is unable to distinguish between the brightness contrast that's there in the field of view. So you have an entire range of brightness levels in your field of view. If you consider your eye to really be like a camera, you have a range of brightness levels ranging from something that's as dark inside to all the way that you see outside, 1 lakh lux. And your eye is unable to resolve those differences. So that's essentially what glare is. Now, there are two components to glare. The first component is the intensity part. which comes from the definition itself. The second component is how your eye perceives the light. And that's really the second term that we've listed here, which is the wavelength of light that influences the perception of brightness. I'm going to talk a little bit more about this in my next slide. So just to put things in perspective, we have light from outside. It passes through a glass. It reaches our eye and is then processed by the brain to create the image that we are actually seeing. Now, one of the things that's important for us to realize is how our eye actually functions. So our eye has three different cone cells. There are blue cones, red cones, R, G, and B. And essentially, if you look at these three colors, this plot essentially shows how the response of the three cones are. You can see blue is really tiny. Red and green, on the other hand, are significantly higher. And if you take a cumulative response of these curves, this curve here is what is called as the photopic response of the eye. It tells you how your eye responds to light of different wavelengths or different colors. You can see that at the far end, it's the excitation to blue is minimum, and for the same quanta or for the same pocket of light, the excitation to yellow, which is caused by a combination of the excitation of the red and the green. The red and the green really mix to cause the yellow, and that is the highest. Now, what does this mean in terms of how we perceive this light? So these two curves here essentially show, so essentially if you look at what's happening here, it's the product of the response of the eye and the transmission of the glass, which is what we perceive. So what I'm actually showing here are two different products. In this product, you can see the spectra is flatter. In this product, you can see the spectra is more steep, and I've overlapped it with the spectra of the eye. Both of them have the same light transmission, but what you can see from both of this is that this curve on the right, this product on the right, is actually going to be more comfortable to the eye, because if you look at this overlap region and if you do the product of both, it's going to be perceived as less bright relative to this. And just to illustrate the point, the product on the right is a blue tinted glass, the product on the left is a neutral tinted glass. So this is the message that I essentially wanted to give, that having a tint on the glazing does make an impact on how our eye perceives light. And a simple render to show that the very fact that the way our eye is built, having a blue tint actually helps reduce the perception of brightness for these kind of products. And essentially, the idea is we can address the topic of glare by using the right products with the right tints and the right performance coatings on top. We're really calling this active glare reduction, because it's essentially your eye that's actively doing the job for you if you have the right product with the right tint and the right performance coating on top of it. And if I were to just summarize what comes out of this, what you essentially get are views that are clear, unrestrained, a better visibility. The eye has a better, your eye can actually resolve the contrasts better. And it actually gives you a place that increases productivity and helps with visual acuity as well. Just to illustrate where we use this in our daily life, if you look at cars and you try and guess what the substrate is, it is typically a blue or a green substrate. And they are there naturally to be able to address this point. The other point we also wanted to bring up is also the sunglasses, which essentially does the same thing by having a tint so that you reduce the brightness that actually reaches the eye. The last point that I also wanted to make here is another series of products which are active products that help bring comfort to the space that we're occupying. So this is sage grass. It's electrochromic glass, and it tints on demand, and essentially it has 4 levels of tint, and based on the brightness levels outside, you can have the tint adjust so that it brings in just the amount of light. To show you a few images, this is typically how an office space would look when you have a clear glass. You could tint it to provide a view of the outside, and there are different levels of tint possible, which essentially makes the you're essentially animating the building and making this place more productive. And to also highlight the fact that glazings with the right spec, the right tints, or even the electrochromic application, they can essentially be used to achieve what we want, which is basically connect to the outside and bringing in sufficient daylight into the space. So just if I were to summarize, so we're talking about tint for better quality of daylight inside of our workspaces. The view is more soothing, more comfortable. Your eye is able to resolve the contrast that you see. Any notion of degradation of the view is not necessarily true in the Indian context. There's one point about aesthetics which I didn't make. I think the combination of the right tints and the coatings essentially reflect the light outwards to give buildings the appearance that architects actually desire. And they provide our spaces with the right balance of quality and spectrum. So that's all I had for today. So I will end my presentation with the slide saying that dare the glare. Let's challenge glare with the tinted substrate range of our products. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Mr. Binay. That was a good presentation. And in fact, you gave us some more time comfortable for probably the question and answers. Now I'm next speaker, Mr. Ashish. Mr. Ashish is a professional with bachelor's degree in architecture with over 19 years qualitative experience in design, construction, management in interiors, buildings, real estate, industrial and development sector. He has had a diverse and unique work experience as an entrepreneur, architect, interior designer, project manager, development expert, and technical marketer with demonstrated ability to focus on technologies. Interiors, infrastructure, social development, networking, habitat, construction, lighting, and architecture has been in scope. He works for Signify as a lead architect and brings green design and aesthetics approach forth through his work. He has worked in many high-profile lighting projects with Signify Philips. He is also a permanent faculty at Signify Philips Lighting Academy. He has been a contributor and part of various committees in IGBC Griha, GBICI, BIS, etc. Over to you, Mr. Ashish.
Yeah, thank you so much. Yeah, thank you so much. Just confirm if you can hear and see me, sir, and see my screen. Can you confirm that?
Yeah, we can see your screen. Go ahead.
Excellent. Excellent. Yeah. So thank you to the eminent panelists, Mr. Suresh. You've all been my mentors. I'll quickly, without much ado, I'll jump to my topic. So, I was asked to talk about visual comfort and, correlation with human health. So, which is why I probably just renamed my, sort of speech to human-centric lighting. So actually, it all depends on, so everything is supposed to help humans perform better, live better, have a better well-being in terms of its our lifestyle and everything. So I would like to talk about the concept of human-centric lighting, some impression about the application and the practice, and then I'll also talk about a bit of standards and good lighting recommendations. Okay, so I had my previous speaker, of course, when I talked about the importance of daylight, and I think I would second that. Probably I'll first that, if I may say that, and it's obviously important because people need light, right? So it's a fundamental need as food and water and whatnot. So I think it's very, very important. And I'm not saying it's research, which is probably just, putting that up. Why is it also important is because 50% of our brain depends on what our eyes see, okay? And 87% of information comes from the sight itself. We cannot feel, we cannot smell, we cannot touch, or taste everything, but most of it is learned through our eyes. So when it's so much dependence is of our brain and our body depends so much on our eyes, I think light becomes a very important ingredient to how we live our life around us. Okay, so But and also, and as the topic proceeds, there's something called a day-night rhythm or a circadian rhythm that we go through. There's a certain time we wake up, certain time we sleep, and light is actually the most powerful regulator of a day-night rhythm. This is a proven fact, and obviously followed by food. So light and food are actually two very strong regulators. So it does affect the way we perform, the way we, directly, as it says, sleep, concentration, alertness, and indirectly also our immune system, our memory, our behavior, so on and so forth. So that's the kind of intense impact light has it on us, basically. What we are going through these days is too little light at the daytime and too much light in the evening. So actually gone, there's the opposite. The issue of light pollution is there, and it's basically a lot of imbalance of how we are living our life. So why are we talking about it now? You see, because the technology at hand is actually much simpler. It's actually giving you a lot of options. It is energy efficient. It allows for tuning, spectral tuning. Colors can change and whatnot. When I was also talking about tinting of glass there, right? So also it is possible to talk to it. So far we only had a switch to switch on and switch off. Now we can talk to it through various mediums, various sensors, various user interfaces, phones, panels, whatnot. So personalization is possible. And thirdly, which is the most important reason, is a bit of biology, where we talk about a third sensor. There are actually two receptors that are in our eyes, the rods and the cones, which tell us the color, which tell us the light and the darkness part. Scientists have developed, or rather uncovered or discovered, a third receptor in our eye, which can actually sense or rather tell our brain what to do basis what our eyes see, actually. So this is actually the non-visual impact to our body. So it is not our eyes, it's actually our brain which is interpreting what, or the third receptor is interpreting what our eyes are seeing, and it is telling our brain to whether to relax, whether to go active, and so on and so forth. So this is a discovery which has happened, I think, very close to when I think IGVC was found, 2001, when the discovery was done. And then ever since, it is a big matter of research, and a lot of theories are coming up. So, but the whole story remains that we have to understand how our bodies react to certain kind of lights, and how can we make use of that information, of that knowledge, to improve our well-being and performance. And that story, or that sort of strategy, is called human-centric lighting, which is devoted to enhancing performance, comfort, health, well-being in any and many combinations primarily. Okay, so it actually looks at all three functional, biological, and emotional needs of our body, or needs of our eyes. It is important to know that light has an influence on performance, preference, perception, impressions, behaviors, mood, but it's very difficult to measure that. That's the lacuna. But still, you cannot deny that you may feel very good or very pleasant. In a certain kind of light setting, you'll feel very good, and certain it will not. It will probably rather make you rather lazy. So this is very, very difficult to explain at times. But the fact remains that yes, there is an impact, and how can we sort of tune it to improve our experience, or our activity, or our relaxation process? How can we accentuate or accelerate our overall well-being with this knowledge? So we can look at intensity, spectrum, distribution, personal control, and timing. These are the 5 factors which, if we play with these, or we know the right combinations, it can actually sort of work in our favor as humans, basically. Okay. You would also ask how that correlation is happening. You see, there are 2 hormones in our body. One is the sleep hormone, one is the the activity hormone. So the shorter wavelength, the blue side of the wavelength, bluer lights actually suppress our melatonin. Melatonin is the sleep hormone, and cortisol is the stress hormone, or let's say if you are active, stress hormone is basically active. So bluer light actually helps our cortisol go up. So if you have to make a person or a set of people more attentive, you have to throw more bluer shade of light, not blue light per se, but in the whites, go for bluer shade, for example. So this is one of the lessons that we've learned. And if you'll also correspond to the fact that when we go to any hotel, the light intensities are low and there are warmer shades, because they want one to let this melatonin come up, and you should be more relaxing, right? So these are some So we have probably learned it over time, but there is also scientific backing to prove that as a fact, that how our light around us plays tricks with our body and how it tells us to keep it, sort of we have to be active or whether we have to relax for that matter. Of course, inadequate exposure is also wrong either way. So it can be sort of, negative impact to our body. So like I talked to you about, there's a visual pathway, how we see and how we react. And there's a non-visual pathway, which is primarily our back of the head, taking information from our eyes and telling our body hormones to do necessary changes in our activities primarily. So I'll probably not, owing to the interest of time, I'll not run through everything, but it just tells us that the visual pathway tells us how to perform, but the non-visual is actually affecting our day-night rhythm, the circadian rhythm, the acute rhythm, our moods. Those are kind of inexplicable when it comes to explain why one thing is happening with one person, why the other way around. But there is a non-visual pathway, and it does affect our overall psychological comfort. If we are uneasy, our visual performance will also go for a toss, right? Our experience will also be bad, right? So it's the overall experience that counts. Very difficult to sort of hardwire and pick up where it went wrong. But it's actually important to know that there are two ways of measuring or assessing this experience per se. So, depending on if all is well, then we will be obviously having a better, emotional attitude, more alertness, better sleep parameter. So circadian rhythm is actually also about how well we sleep. So you see, so people who appraise their lighting as good will also appraise the room as be more attractive, you'll be more pleasant mood, be more satisfied, and work environment and more engaged in their work. So again, I'm not saying there's absolute, a lot of research which has happened and is coming to the fore. So idea remains that nobody likes to live in a dark or rather work in a dark, dingy space. You need a good amount of lighting to be happy, good amount of volumetric lighting to be more, to be able to address or rather acknowledge spaces around you, people around you. So those are some small things, right? So I think I've already talked to you about the melatonin and cortisol story. So let's say in the morning, our melatonin is suppressed when we go under the daylight or sunlight. Our melatonin is suppressed, our cortisol goes up. In the evening, the other thing happens, right? So fair amount of science, you can read about it. It's pretty easy. If you look up circadian rhythm online, you learn. But there's an internal clock ticking, which is telling our bodies to do as it is telling our, the light is telling our hormones, and hormones are putting our body to rest or being active basis that. And the trick lies in the quantity and quality of light, the color of light, or the particular wavelength of light, basically. All right. So so night, to have a good sleep, we need the lowest light level or the zero light level. Obviously, nobody wants to sleep under a little, even if a bit of light, right? You need those eye flaps to sleep at times, right? So you need to accentuate your experience. In the morning, of course, you need cool and increased daylight levels, right? It raises the energy levels. In the afternoon, you can probably move from cool to, sort of warm or let's say neutral shades of light. And of course, in the evening, you need to start the melatonin production. Our sleep hormones have to start working for a balanced approach, right? So you need warmer and decreased light levels. So this is just a correlation to tell you that there is a lot of, explanation for such experiences. And if the more we know, the more good decisions we will take, right? There's also an urge to sleep just after the lunch. I can show you a little graphic up there. There's a sleep urge which happens just after the lunch, which actually happens 12 hours after our best sleep. So if you are sleeping your best at 2 a.m., around 2 p.m., you will also get a little kick to sleep. So you may sort of blame the food that you had, but it's natural, and you can actually suppress it by having more bluer shade of light on you, and it'll subdue itself naturally, right? So, or of course, there are other ways to do that by coffee or, walk under the sun for that matter. So a lot of ways to sort of keep yourself active. So suppress the melatonin at times, suppress your cortisol at times, right? Sometimes you're too worked up towards the end of the day and you can't sleep. You need to go under warmer shades, lower intensity life, and you will eventually, it sort of helps you to sleep ahead, right? So of course, as it says, studies have shown exposure to higher luminance level can result to alertness and performance. Again, this is all research which has been done. So some applications quickly, so in offices, for example, most of the cost goes to people, right? It's not just about energy or rentals. I think energy is still a very small cost to any working organization. So idea remains that if you make people more productive, your return on investment on good lighting sort of pays itself up. So energy is still a very small ROI to look at, for example. Okay, and I'm not saying that there's actually a study which has been done which has quantified benefits of human-centric lighting, right? So so there is they've actually quantified how much percentage of alertness, or how many less sick days are there in a workspace or an industry or at home or a hospital. So they've done quite a bit of research on that, and there are some data points which are available which can be looked at. So it's not just a theory that we're talking that it's a good thing to do. There are quantified benefits for organizations to invest in this theory as well. I think I've already mentioned that what kind of lighting you need. It works in healthcare, offices, homes, hospitality, even schools for that matter, and in the industry. So any kind of indoor space, the knowledge of human-centric lighting helps us improve our experience. Some bit of example that I'll give you. So for one very important aspect is vertical is the new horizontal. So most of these standards talk about only horizontal lux levels. I think also important to understand, how we see each other, how we see the spaces around us, and most of it is vertical, right? So, so we need to also consider and work for vertical luminance when we are designing for our spaces, for our workspaces, for any kind of spaces, right? So that's why I say vertical is the new horizontal. Of course, we have to check the glare component, which I think my previous speaker did talk a lot about, and other good lighting criteria. But fact remains, human-centric lighting needs, it has to be a sensitive approach for enhanced experience per se, and of course, which is enhancing our health and well-being. In offices, I would recommend tunable lighting for that matter, which can change the tonality or rather the color, temperatures, if I may say that, from warm to cool, depending on time of the day and intensities. The kind of impression or the kind of activity you like to sort of impose on the employee. Impose may be a wrong word, but basically you sort of imbibe onto the employees. People are feeling drowsy, tired. Yes, let's give them a dose of bluer shade of light and higher lux levels. You will see the impact. Obviously, it's not an instant impact, but over a period of time, multiple number of days, you will see it started working, right? There's no pill right there, but the environment does have an impact, and it's proven, right? So also personalization possibility that I talked about, that 90% cost goes in employees' expense. If you give them the choice to change the color or intensity of their own light through many technologies available, the IoTs available, power over Ethernet, wired platforms, whatnot, I think they also will become happier or more energetic in terms of giving their best work or performance to the organization, right? So you have to democratize that, rather than putting one switch for the home floor or one power button or something. Let's give them the power to choose their own lighting depending on the kind of spaces they are using, right? And which is now possible by using technologies like PoE and many others, right? I already told you there are many ways of doing that. Mobiles is one, these touch panels another. This is a lighting consultant who talked about the fact that one should have a circadian balance illumination, which again is giving a more scientific approach, saying that in morning we need a bluer spectrum, and the evening you need a more warmer shade or amber or red enhanced light sources with a certain the amplitude is mentioned there basically. So so it's not that, again, like I was saying, it's not just a theory. It's actually been backed by a lot of practitioners, and they are also promoting that. Another very interesting solution that I may suggest is a large canvas kind of a light, which is not a point source, and it does give you a huge diffuse light space. You get a lot of vertical illumination. So the source of light is almost as big as the space, and point sources create shadows, but a larger size of light will create a very interesting, diffuse, non-shadowing, vertical illuminated space without any glare, of course. And if it is dimmable and tunable, I think that's the best combination, right? So an excerpt from the human-centered lighting benefits, I was telling you, plus 1.15% productivity, minus 1% sick days, plus you have 1 year of employee staying. So of course, this was more of a sample size, but at least if you see virtue, the numbers may vary, but at least there is a benefit which is hidden there, depending on how keen we are to implement these kind of lighting strategies. This works also very well in hospital lighting, where a person is on drugs, he's like on a jet lag thing. You need to bring a person back to a normal day-night rhythm. Bring light, which of course either bring them a natural light. If they cannot, at least give them a light which is tunable and is telling us when to wake up, when to sleep, because our bodies are tuned. Living in a tropical country, our bodies are tuned to actually daylight. We know almost what time of the day it is, even when we peep outside the window. So I think enough of hospitals. It has proven that patients improve fall sleep time, and of course improve their uptime for that matter, and a couple of other so there is more data with and it's downloadable. Please, you can look at quantified benefits of human-centric lighting. You can read about what impact it has on the medical segment. So it's a long presentation, but I'll skip a few slides. Even in schools now, schools are very different from what we used to study in. There are a lot of other activities kids go through. Similarly, when we have to make them concentrate or rest or energize, this tunable lighting can also be worked in, put it in schools, and they can become very interesting spaces, and also enhance the cognitive abilities of the students for that matter. So their concentration has started improving because of such lighting strategies, right? Again, more graphics and numbers. I will not stay here. Very interesting. Retail lighting in the same dress is being, this is a changing room story. You see the same person with the same dress, but how lighting is changing the whole experience of choosing a dress. So it's not very scientific, but you see, I was talking to you about vertical lighting. Look at the vertical panel, which is giving you the light from, and it also with a touch of a button changes as per the requirement that you want to buy, kind of a occasion that you're buying the dress for. So for a daylight or a night out, you can actually see yourself in the same light setting, and you will see yourself from top to bottom. You will not have any shadow. So it's a small but a very sensitive approach towards how do you light up spaces depending on the activity it is supposed to enhance for that matter, right? So even at homes,
you have last 2 minutes.
I understand. I'm almost done. All right. So in homes also, now there are technologies available to talk to your lighting and sort of change colors and interact with them. So a lot of such technologies are available. You can also explore that, and they can become a space. Your home will become a double space. What you do for it, a table space can become a study space depending on the time of the lighting. Okay, so what are the good lighting criteria? So looked at illumination levels, glare limitations, distribution, light directionality, obviously colors, plus dynamics and flexibility. How can I address my need? Maybe the same lighting is on my head, but what else can I make it do, right? And of course, you should have to be miserly towards our energy considerations. So some standards to adhere. Of course, we need to look at our national codes, lighting codes, a global code called European norm, EN 12464, and of course ASHRAE. Plus, of course, we have our own IGBC to help us with the energy, and wellness rating is also there with IGBC to sort of guide us ahead, right? So what are the good lighting parameters? We should look at beyond task lighting. We should look at surfaces of enclosed spaces. Look at the scale of luminance, look at the task areas, look at immediate surrounding area, look at the background area. So it's like more even distribution of lighting for an ease of work. Of course, in addition to the human centricity approach that I already talked about, reduce the glare part, have good color rendering and suitable color temperature. And as I told you earlier about vertical illumination and modeling. So this is all I had to say, sir. I hope I finished in time. Thank you so much, sir.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Ashish. You're just in time.
Yeah.
Thank you very much. You really went into the depth of the whole explanation on its different influences of light in human life. Now, to conclude the session, I just want to summarize all the knowledge which has been shared by our speakers. We had a galaxy of wonderful speakers today, ladies and gentlemen. It was an honor to have all of them in our Green Building Council for today's presentation. I thank all of them for sharing their knowledge and enriching the experiences of others. Now, this first speaker, Madam Kate Harris. It was indeed a good presentation. You could really touch very good points on global eco-labeling network. The most touching information, whatever you have given, is your personal experiences with your son on the embodied chemicals effect on a human being. That's really wonderful and heart-touching. Thank you very much. And eco-labeling, the aspects of eco-labeling, you have really explained very well. And how do you make a building really healthier with the holistic approach, with all the interventions of different green technologies and green aspects of, and most importantly, we were impressed on the credibility created behind the label, the eco label, which is very important, the process you follow. Thank you very much, Madam. Coming to Mr. Vinay Natarajan's presentation, he really dealt very nicely with the control of sunlight by using the different technologies in glass. And that was a good information, sir, how really you make a comfort, the visual comfort, especially when you're exposed to daylight. And that was a good presentation. Thank you very much. Lastly, again, Mr. Ashish, that was really impressive. You have taken us through the complete gamut or the complete aspects of the day, the night, how it really has an influence on human being. And that was a good presentation. Thank you. Thank you very much. Now the floor is open for the questions and answers. If you have any questions for the speakers, you're welcome. Mr. Whelan would like to add.
Thank you very much, Somashekar. Very quickly, since the next set of speakers are there, I will ask one question from all three of you. Very quickly, answer. These are the questions from the audience. One, first to Kat, for you. Can you share? Am I audible? Can you share your experience on how eco-label products have made the selection of products easier for the users, end users? 1 minute, madam, please.
Thank you. Well, certainly for multinational companies, so green buildings, certainly they know, for instance, in Australia, they'll go to GECA, they look for labels, they'll go to our website, and they know those products. Also, it's a lot of work to get eco-labeling and you want to be rewarded for it. So it's very clearly marketed. We have a checklist at the back end of our website to make sure that their certification is live and valid. But we do have other examples such as things like schools and architects who are now specifying in public policy. They're now saying it must be a global eco-labeling network, a certified product, for instance, so that actually as part of it at a policy level, it trickles down to make sure.
Oh, fantastic. Thank you very much. Vinay, to you, the next question. How can the selection of glass be optimized based on climatic zones?
Sure. So I think there are very standard ways of doing this. So typically, if you have, I think there's enough data available on how much solar radiation actually reaches our floor, how much reaches the earth. And so if you have the orientation of the building, if you have the location, and if you have the window to wall ratio, I think there are very simple design calculations that can be done. In fact, we do that for every project that we get to make sure we recommend the right product.
Thank you, Mr. Vinay. Ashish, lastly to you, one question. Can circadian lighting help better in healing healthcare?
That is true, sir. That's a proven fact. In fact, I could not spend time in my presentation on that. But if I tell you the earlier, before we had hospitals as buildings, all the healing used to happen under the sun, you see. Right. So basically, how tonality, see, it does help accentuate your health getting better. It doesn't replace the medicine. But, a person who's a normal, healthy person will sleep in the night and wake up in the morning. There's a regular cycle of being a healthy person, right? So if circadian lighting can help the person bring back to a normal, balanced day-night cycle, I think the rest of the job remains, with the medicines to do its job. Yes.
Thank you very much, Ashish. Somashekar very nicely consolidated all those speakers, content. And thank you very much, Mr. Suresh, for being with us. And last few words with you from you, sir. Otherwise, we are through with our panel discussion. The next set of speakers are available for the next session.
I'm deeply impressed. I think it's.
Yeah, you are right. You are there. You are there.
Yeah, I'm deeply impressed with all the three presentations made in time over there. They really brought in this component of health and well-being, different dimensions of that. The visual dimension has come out very, very powerfully. It has come out over there. And efforts being done through very different geographies, what they are doing is well brought out. And I'm very happy to hear that. And especially on the lighting side, both the presentations which was made, I was very impressed. And especially the way in which the fight between the two levels of the lighting, which was indicated by Ashish, I was so impressed. And we'll have to be very, especially as the mood lighting is an important component. That's what we just put on some switch over there in every room. That's not enough. You got to have the right level of mood lighting, depending on the living room or your bedroom or your dining room or your spaces there. And how do we really deal with that? And more so during the daylighting period, how do you cut it off when you want to cut off harsh lights and you want to only have the good lights coming over there? That's a good design. I think only a combination of illumination engineer and an architect and the space designer put together. There is something which is the building physics aspect, which will be brought in by the architects with the orientation of the building and the fenestration design is one during the daylighting period. And the other one, of course, is to the active. One is passive. The other one is the active one, which you can do through various illumination equipments and fittings and the nature of bulbs that we use, etc., color of the light, etc., etc. Some of the things are even for me very revealing, and I'm very happy to hear that. I'm happy I sat through the whole thing to hear everybody's presentation. I enjoyed it as much. I'm sure all of you did that. Very productive session. Thank you.
Thank you, Chairman. Thank you, every panel members and Somashekar for joining us. Wonderful session. Thank you very much. Have a great day.
You all.
And good night to you, madam.
Bye-bye.
We'll sign off. Thank you.
Thank you, everyone.
Bye.
Thank you, everyone, for joining us. Thank you, Chairman. Thank you, panelists and all the speakers. We also have an exhibition which is running parallelly online. So we'd request all of you to visit the exhibition before the start of the next session. The next session would start in another 10 minutes. So meanwhile, you could visit the exhibition and then join us for the next session at 4:30. Thank you all. And we would also like to thank all our supporters who have made this Congress a great success.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
We'll sign off, sir. Thank you.
Yeah.
So I sign off. So
Yes, sir.
Somashekar, good session. A very good summary you made. Very nice.